It's time for Chicagoland Golf with the editor and publisher of Chicagoland Golf magazine, Phil Kosin. The show where for the next 2 hours, you'll get the latest info from the PGA Tour, local tournaments, and tips for your golf game. And now, your host, Phil Kosin.
Let's see, what polka is that this week? It's the FedEx Cup polka again. I guess last week it didn't take. So we're playing it again. Great stuff, Dave White. And how's your weekend going for you so far?
Outstanding. How's everything with you?
Oh, it's pretty good. We just got, we had to switch printers for the September issue of Chicagoland Golf, but we were able to do that fairly smoothly. It is a big adjustment. We have to, find a new printer, train them.
I changed the
There's
ink.
a lot.
I changed the ink in my printer this week. That's the big deal at my house.
You know what the biggest thing is? Everything we have is complicated software for putting pages together electronically. I have done an entire issue, 20-something pages, in a hotel room or in two different hotel rooms on the way to a major championship while I'm driving. I don't like doing that, but that's sometimes what you have to do. But every time you switch a printer, because their presses are different, you have to make all kinds of adjustments inside those programs so everything meshes perfectly, all the settings for the outputs and everything. And so we worked on that this week, and we're very satisfied with the way things have turned out. So anyway, we have got a great show for you today. We're going to talk to Len Ziem of the Chicago Sun-Times and Chicagoland Golf. And we're also going to speak with Brian Hewitt of the Golf Channel. He's one of their insiders who was born in Winnetka and went to New Trier. And New Trier, of course, we all know, will be in the news this upcoming week. And maybe we can get a comment out of Brian on that. I bet he doesn't even know about it. Anyway, Len Ziem, welcome in. How's everything going with you?
Oh, it's been a quiet golf season, but a pretty good one though. It's I hate to see it end.
All right, let's start locally. Just a couple of days ago, I guess there's one more event, the Illinois Senior Open, and then the Illinois PGA Fall Classic, which is at Eagle Ridge, which the guys enjoy, but they don't really get a great fan base driving all the way out there. But this week was
the Illinois PGA Players Championship, just so you know.
The event this past week?
They've given it a new name.
All right, so anyway, the Illinois PGA Players Championship was this week? That you're telling me they changed?
That's the one at Eagle Ridge that you were talking about. Yeah, that's no longer the Eagle Ridge Classic. It's got a much loftier name. Good name.
Yeah, that one's called 3 Days Without Sleep. And I know nobody leaves Eagle Ridge to go to Dubuque to where the gambling boats and stuff is. I'm sure that doesn't happen while they're there. Yeah. Anyway, Mike Small, you had kind of beat up on Mike Small in your column the other day in Chicagoland Golf for not winning the Illinois Open, for not qualifying. And I was surprised that he didn't qualify as one of the top 20 club professionals in the country. I was really surprised that he didn't qualify to play in the PGA Championship. I think maybe he'd enjoy the proposal if we started it that the defending low pro get one of the spots automatically. But anyway, he came back finally after a year not typical of him, with really no wins. Right. And he comes back and he wins the Illinois PGA Championship by a stroke on Wednesday. Tell us about it.
Well, I tell you, this wasn't exactly a vintage Mike Small win, but he certainly needed the win. We're so used to him just dominating the local scene, and that hasn't been the case this year. I mean, he barely won this one, but it was his sixth straight win in this in the Illinois PGA Championship, and his 7th in 8 years. So he certainly has dominated this tournament, this Illinois PGA Championship, more than any other player did, and it's a 86-year-old tournament, so that's quite an accomplishment. But Mike came to the 18th hole with a 3-shot lead, and almost blew it. So there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of drama to see that one end. He put his ball in the water on par 3, 18th hole at the number 1 course, and his main rival, Steve Orrick of Decatur, was on the green with a 10-footer for birdie, and Mike had a real tough shot from the drop area. He was lucky to get it 12 feet from the hole, and then, of course, Orrick missed his birdie putt, and Mike could 2-putt for the win. But it was a lot of drama to finish. It was a tournament where the venue was almost more the story than the championship itself, because so few tournaments are played at Medina number 1. We always think of number 3 being the big tournament site here, but number 1 was a real good site for this one. I hope they come back and use it some more. I know they're going to come back here in 2011, but it's always been one of my favorite private clubs when I get a chance to play it.
For those who have never seen Medina number 1, describe it and compare it to what they have seen in number 3.
Yeah, number 1 is, I guess the simplest way to put it would be it's shorter and sportier. It's a lot more a fun course. To me, number 3 can just beat you down. It's probably, I think that number 1 plays 6,700 from the tips. Number 3 probably plays 7,300. Could be stretched that far back. There's the thing about number 1 is I don't necessarily like it either, but the 2 of the last 3 holes are par 3s over water, including the last one. And I always feel like that they'd be better served to have those somewhere else in the rotation. But it's a good test. It's a good test. The Illinois PGA pros certainly found that out. I think they only had 4 players under par of the 100. I think 156 was their field for the finals. So it was a real good. It was a good test for them, and it's kind of, I don't like to use the term as a sporty course, but because that somewhat denigrates it as easy, and it's not easy. It's a challenging course, but it's certainly a lot more fun to play for the average player than number 3 would be.
How does it differ, though, in design and topography from number 3?
Well, let's see. Number 3, of course, has gotten a lot of cosmetic work, Reese Jones and all that. It's really not, both were John Bendelow courses originally, way back in the 20s, but you wouldn't know the difference now. Number 3 has a lot more undulations now. It's a thicker rough. Even though a lot of trees were removed in the latest renovation, it's still a much tighter course, much more demanding. I think that water comes into play. Let's see, number 1, number 3, it'll be coming into play at about 4 or 5 holes, and I think only 2 times on number 1. But and of course, length is of course the major consideration. I mean, when a course that's at 6,700 yards from the tips it's typical of the older private clubs in the area now, but of course the way they're building courses now, they have to really be over 7,000 to get anyone's attention with all the new equipment that's out there.
You know, it's funny though, and think of all the times as a golf writer, people have come up to you and said, "I went to Pebble Beach and I shot this." Mm-hmm. And nobody ever asks, what tees did you play from? Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
and I tell you what, it's very important that this Medina number 1 is one of those courses where you could play, you know, I played it. I'm a 19 handicapper, and I played it back tees when I play here. But it's one of those, there are courses where you just simply don't enjoy the round if you play the wrong set of tees. I feel like Kemper Lakes is one of those in our area. I mean, you can put yourself in a lot of positions where a forced carry is out of range for people, certain people like myself. But this is one course where that's not quite like that.
So it's challenging and fair.
Absolutely. Yeah, hit the nail on the head.
Well, yeah, it's... You know, we try to analyze golf courses here, and some are tough but fair. Mm-hmm. Every architect I've ever spoken to about a course they just designed, they all tell you it's tough but fair.
Yeah.
But as we all know, that's not always the case, and there are some incredibly stupid holes on golf courses in Chicago. But getting back to the yardage thing, there's a story I wrote on my blog at ChicagolandGolf.com, and we've had a lot of people read it, and I got a lot of feedback on it. It's going to stay up there for a while. It's the story of the 678-yard par 5, which is, we're talking 1987, this course opened up. That's 3 223-yard shots to get it on that green using the equipment, the golf ball, and the clubs that we had in 1987, which is almost impossible. But the whole point there was to get the yardage for the golf course over 7,000 yards. And I've heard so many people, so many golf course owners have called, and people say, well, they call up and they go, well, you got tee times? How far back does your course go? And they go, we go back to 6,800 yards. Oh, okay, thank you. And then click. And I'm thinking, it's just like looking at 100 and yardage tells me nothing about a golf course. It tells me nothing about a hole. There are. Well, take the the 7th hole at Pebble Beach. That little par 3 plays from the back at 117 yards.
Yeah, great hole. Great hole.
Yes, but I guarantee you, for 117 yards, that one's going to give you all you want and more.
Well, not only that, it'll give you your memories. That hole is one of the most famous holes in the world. The look of the ocean and all that. I mean, you get done playing that course, no matter what you made on that hole, that's the hole that's going to stick out in your mind. And it's one of the shortest holes on any championship course anywhere. It might be the shortest.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Well, except, of course, when we're speaking, are we speaking major championships? Because at Ziggy Troy.
That's right. There's some toughies there. You're right.
Yeah, they just got through with another Ziegfeld Troy Open, which I've played in a couple of those, and so have you. And everybody goes out there and thinks, oh, it's this little golf course, it's a bunch of par 3 holes. But I'll tell you what, you got to golf your ball there, especially on some of those greens. We played with a person whose name we won't mention, and that was one of the few times in my life, and I've known this guy for over 25 years, where I saw him throwing clubs and saying words that only I allow myself to say.
If he's the same guy, if we're thinking of the same guy, I don't think he showed up for the second round.
No, that's possible. Yeah, it could be very frustrating. All right, you know what? I'm going to take a break, and we'll come back. I'm on the phone with Chicagoland Golf and Sun-Times golf writer Len Ziem. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin, and you're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago, The Score, Sports Radio 670. We're back. Oh, what a great day to play golf. It's good, whether it rains or not in Chicago, it's always good to play golf. And my guest on this portion of the show is Len Ziem, an old friend and the golf writer for the Sun-Times and with us at Chicagoland Golf for 20 years. Lenny, I hate to spoil this for anybody, but I guess we got, 2 more days, or 1 more day tomorrow in the meteorological summer. And so Monday would be the first day of FALL, and maybe it's not too early to try to look at that list of courses that we had made out at the beginning of the year saying these are the places I want to play before I have to get the snow shovel out. And it's not too soon to start thinking that way, is it?
Well, no, it isn't. But I always have felt that the fall golf is the best golf. It's you get the beautiful colors will be coming out pretty soon, and it makes the course different. I always seem to play a little better in the fall. I think because the ball goes a little further, the ground gets harder, and I'll play right into November. I've got some more work commitments now in the fall than I had in the summer, but golf is golf. It's going to be a lot of fun. The season's not over yet, and I think it's been playing wise a pretty good season in Chicago, given the economic pressures and all. I think that the courses have really held up pretty good. Speaking generally, of course.
Yeah. Isn't the old adage in golf that the chops all put their golf clubs away on Labor Day and pick up their bowling ball?
That's right. That's right. This ends this weekend. I mean, the Labor Day weekend will end the season for a lot of people, which is a shame. They're missing out on a lot of good golf that's coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, you know, the days it's gonna get a little cooler. We have good growing condition. Not this summer for sure, because we didn't really have the heat and humidity, but in previous years when we've had that and it's destroyed a lot of turf, this is the time of year it all starts coming back. It's all there. It's been there all summer. It's a great time of year to play. You know, the spring's always fun, and you're always full of expectation. This is it. Everybody should have their game pretty well in hand, and this is when you can really go out and challenge yourself by playing courses that you may have never played before, but you heard about.
You know, this year was a year I tried to go back to a few that I hadn't played. It was funny you brought up Golf Club of Illinois in the first segment there. I hadn't played there since its very early years. You know, everybody thought when that course opened in the late 80s, I believe it was, that it was set up as a links course, and Chicago didn't have any of those, and it had this monster hole, and it was very difficult to play because you'd lose your ball in the fescue and all that. And that course is much more user-friendly now. I had a very enjoyable day out there. And I played a couple of other courses, Ruffled Feathers and White Deer Run, courses that I hadn't played since the first year that they had opened. And they were just really pleasant surprises. I remembered a rough course in its early stages, and in both of those cases, they turned into real good tracks. So it's been one of those times of the year. It's good to go back to courses you haven't seen in a long time. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and last week we made an announcement on the show. I'll repeat it again. It looks like, according to what Frank Jemsick told me the other day, it looks like they're going to get number 4 open this year.
Yeah, I went to have a look at it. I got a tour of the course with Catherine Jemsick last week, and I think it looks spectacular. It looks, and Frank tells me that they're hoping to have kind of a soft opening before the fall is out. He's hoping for that, and then he guarantees, of course, an opening for it in the spring. But I think Chicago golfers are going to be really pleasantly surprised with the results of that renovation.
Yeah, and they're also going to be surprised with the new green fee. No.
Yes, they are.
I don't know. I have no idea. No, I'm just kidding, folks.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: it's not going to be less than it used to be.
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, that was a $5 million project to do what they did over there, and I thought the Old Dubs was, of course, a great track, one of my favorites. But I think the new version is nothing short of spectacular. I was very impressed with what I saw.
Yeah, well, despite what you hear in other places, Reese Jones does do some pretty good work, and when I get into it with these morons on these architectural elite internet boards, chat rooms, I just love going there and having fun with them. And there was one guy on there that in the middle of last summer wrote that Reese Jones ruined Cog Hill. And I came back and said, this illustrates what an imbecile you are. They haven't even started on the work there yet. See, and this is how people think.
Uh-huh.
All I know is that Reese Jones keeps getting called to do work for some of the greatest golf courses on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I think that should say it all right there. If he wasn't any good, they wouldn't hire him.
Well, he was telling me last week that he's done. This number was higher than I thought it was, but anyway, he's done renovation work on 11 courses that went on to host major championships. I didn't realize it was quite that many, and he predicted straight out that he thought Cog Hill would be the 12th. So, his work, the record speaks for itself. He's one of the real premier architects of our time, that's for sure.
Well, here's one of the things I noticed, and I have to do a little more investigative work to see if I'm right, but you correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I go to play Congressional, and then they have to bring Reese Jones in to redo everything, and you and I go play over at Oakland Hills, and they have to bring Reese Jones in to redo everything, and I'm thinking, could it be us?
Yeah, it's always puzzled me as to how a course can get a reputation and host a big major or even get named for one, and then it needs Medina is another case in point. They need a renovation to make it bring it up to snuff. I've never quite understood that, but greater minds than ours must weigh in on that. But it always seems like Reese is the man that they want to do the job, and you can't argue with the results there.
Well, for sure, he has the USGA's ear.
Right.
And one thing that I find very strange, and we all know that they're going to have to schedule a U.S. Open for the Midwest here one of these days, because we're all the way up to, 2014 right now, and we don't have anything in the Midwest. And my guess is that the USGA is waiting on Aaron Hills. Of course, you know where a lot of that speculation came from, yeah. Wisconsin golf writers, who are homers. And I don't blame them. They're proud of what they have up there. But I keep wondering, is it possible that they're waiting to see Cog Hill before they commit to Aaron Hills? You know what? Hold on. Wait, hold it.
Yep.
I'm up against a hard break, so we'll do that. You formulate your answer in your head. I'm going to grab another cup of coffee, and we'll come right back. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. Len Ziem of the Sun-Times and Chicagoland Golf is our guest. I'm Phil Kosin. You're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago. The Score, Sports Radio 670.
This segment on The Score in Chicagoland Golf is brought to you by the DQ Hot Dog of the Week. Win a Dairy Queen gift card. Log on to 670thescore.com for the DQ Hot Dog of the Week contest info.
We're back. The Chicagoland Golf Show. Our guest on this portion, our old friend and very knowledgeable golf writer, Len Ziem of the Chicago Sun-Times and Chicagoland Golf. He's been in every issue of Chicagoland Golf for 20 years, and he's been covering for the Sun-Times since probably the early 1940s, if I remember. I heard my dad talking about reading you when he got out of high school. So, all right, interesting topic. We've all heard a lot about Aaron Hills. I've been up there a couple times, met the owner Bob Lang, took the tour a couple times, drove the course, studied it. It's a very impressive golf course. It is, in Bob's words, an experience, because that's what he tried to design up there. As an aside, we also had a little exclusive that Bob plans to build a second golf course up there. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a true golf destination. He's going to do what Mike Kaiser of Chicago did, I guess, out in Bandon, Oregon, with Bandon Dunes. It's isolated. It's going to be nothing but pure golf, a place to stay, and get away from everything else in your life, and all you do is, live this golf dream, the Kingdom of Shiva's Irons, or, name your novel. But anyway, Aaron Hills was touted highly by the Wisconsin golf writers. And, those guys are all very proud. They're cheeseheads, okay?
That's right.
No, they're all very proud of what they have here, just as what we are. They share our pride. We share the same type of pride for the courses. We'll defend the ones here in Chicago from outsiders any time of day or night, anywhere, in an alley,
Absolutely.
in the middle of the kitchen at Smith and Walensky, wherever it comes up. No. It's my opinion, and it is a very unique place, but it's my opinion that the Wisconsin golf writers got a little carried away. There was one person from the USGA that saw it, and, as if he made the decision all by himself, said, we're going to bring a U.S. Open here, or something on that order. And they've taken that, and they've run with it, and they've run with it, and they're still running with it.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, wait, let me finish my thought, and then you can go.
Yep.
Now, in that interim, since all that hyperbole started inundating us, they have chosen, the USGA Council chose Chambers Bay. Also on the Pacific Ocean, like Bandon Dunes, for a U.S. Open. It's a municipal course. It's a terrific course from the pictures I've seen. As an aside, of course, our friends at Kemper Sports run it, so we're good to go there anytime we want. No. No, but they come in with this Chambers Bay at the same time, and they got an U.S. amateur at the same time Aaron Hills did up in Wisconsin. And I'm wondering, well, why didn't Aaron Hills, if it's been so highly touted by the USGA, and we had never heard anything about Chambers Bay, it never showed up on any radar, why all of a sudden are we hearing so much about this? And why wasn't Aaron Hills given a U.S. Open? And my feeling is that they're holding off. They put the process on hold because Mike Davis and a lot of the USGA people have also been out to Cog Hill. And I think they're waiting. My opinion is that if they're going to bring another one to the Midwest, they're waiting to see what Reese Jones did at Cog Hill before they make a decision. Lenny, your thoughts on that?
Well, that would make a lot of sense. I'm disappointed in the way the USGA has been doing some of these things here. This the hype given Aaron Hills, of course, was all due to Mike Davis of the USGA going out there and leading the cause for a course that he apparently loves, which is fine. The awarding, of course, a national championship, even if it is a minor one, the U.S. Women's Amateur Public Links, before it even opened, I mean, that was the hype. That course couldn't have bought that kind of advertising anywhere. And then to follow it up by giving the U.S. Open to Chambers Bay before anybody really knows about it. I mean, that breaks all the traditions of what these major championships have had. I mean, the courses have had to earn their due before they get a chance at one of these, which is disturbing to me because I think that it will it doesn't really might not bode well for Cog Hill. I mean, here's a course that I think is Chicago's best bet for a U.S. Open, especially now since the renovation. But if the trend now is to start going to new courses, ones that, I mean, barely have had their doors open, there's just no telling, where they'll go for some of these things next. And I don't want to sound at all negative towards Chambers Bay because I haven't seen it. I have played Aaron Hills a couple times. I think it's a good golf course, but whether it merits all the attention it got, I doubt. I think that it's been a bit of a product overhyped. But I mean, it's not a bad track at all. I mean, there's some real good golf being developed in Wisconsin, and I'm more credit to them. I wish we had some projects like that coming back to the Chicago area. But I'm concerned about it, and I think that because I really think that Cog Hill, the story of the Jemsicks and Joe Jemsick's dream was to host the U.S. Open, and I hope that that course does get it because I think the new renovation is going to push it ahead of Aaron Hills for sure, and I think that it's going to be the next best site in the Midwest to hold a tournament like that.
Well, I agree with everything you said. But I think there's one factor. No. There's one factor that I'm seeing now. You say that they're going to new golf courses. That's true, but
there, yeah.
Yeah, but let me tell you why I think they're doing that. They go to a place like Wingfoot, and it's all locked in with neighborhoods. Yep. There's not a lot of room there for infrastructure except on their other course. It's a traffic nightmare. I heard a story. I can't remember who it was, but they were on a bus. It took them 3 days to get to the golf course from the media hotel.
I was in a nightmare like that at Balthus for all 1 year where you couldn't get there. Yeah, that's another course that's the same thing. And Marion is coming up. I'm sure there's going to be problems with it. And yes, it's a big tournament.
I think what the USGA has discovered, now it's not beyond the realm of possibility that they're starting to get a little bit greedy over there in Far Hills. When you bring on Lexus, Rolex, Barclays, and who's the other one I'm forgetting? Is it White Castle? No. Lexus or something. Lexus or something. They got all these highfalutin, rich sponsors, which they've never had before. And they're in it for the money right now. What they found out was, and of course they're not going to tell you this, so I will, At Torrey Pines, they stood to clear somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million. Clear.
Well, there you have it.
Now at Wingfoot, because of that golf course being, older and a little bit more compact, they couldn't put as many people out there as they did at Torrey Pines. They didn't have the infrastructure, and as a result, at a place like Wingfoot, they only made $30 million there. Okay. God, I'm a jerk without even trying. But anyway, so they're thinking just by choosing the right venue, we can make an extra $20 million. Duh. So Marion, in my opinion, will be the last time we're going to see one of those old-time courses. They're going to go there for tradition. But they could find places where they can make a hell of a lot more money. That's why I think they'll go back to Torrey Pines. That's why they looked at Chambers Bay. And that's why I think because of the infrastructure and everything else, they got plenty of room for whatever kind of a circus tent they want to build at Cog Hill. That's why I think Cog Hill's going to get a chance. Not because of the Gem 6, not for any other heroic reasons or honorable reasons. It's all about the money anymore, and I think maybe sometimes as golfers we tend to forget that.
Well, yeah, it's a sad fact of life, I guess. But it does that you're right, though. That is a plus on the Cog Hill front because bringing the tournament to Chicago, a major market at a location with a lot of space around it. They need it, especially if it's Bethpage Black. Look what they did in New York. They built their own course to hold the U.S. Open out there. And in Cog Hill, they didn't have to build it. They're going to find another Reese Jones course, and I think it'll do the job. And I welcome it. I welcome it. I'm just the new courses. Okay, sooner or later you got to change. You can't just keep a rotation like they do with the British, going from one to the other. The old courses. It's in a way it can be refreshing. However, bringing a U.S. Open to a course that hasn't had a major championship of any kind. A national championship, not a U.S. amateur, not anything of that nature. That's stretching the point as far as I'm concerned. That's pushing the envelope.
All right, I got a couple minutes left, and one of the things I wanted to bring up, and we don't really know that much about it because the LPGA hasn't issued any details, but they have come out this past week saying that next year they want all of the players on the LPGA Tour to have, and like I said, we don't even know what the parameters are, to have a good working skills at the English language. Your opinion?
2 points here. Number one, I'm all for it. I think it's a great. I think I see nothing wrong with them making this mandate. I think that tour needs to have. They're doing the marketing, and just a player to come there and play to get the money and go home. Players have to participate in the marketing and promotional efforts that go into putting on a major tournament. So I'm all for the fact that they made this declaration. Number two, the thing that concerns me here is how they ever going to enforce it. How are you going to define whether a Korean player is speaking acceptable English, has made the effort to learn a new language? I just don't see how it can be. I think it's an interesting concept and an interesting thing to throw out there, and I hope it's taken to heart by the players. But I don't see how it can be enforced. I mean, how can you keep a player who's a real good player out of a tournament because of a language problem? I want to see how they work that out. We need to hear more details on it, but it certainly is something that needed to be done in the LPGA ranks there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a quote from the tournament director at the State Farm Rail Classic. And she says that they're all for it. They think it's a great idea, and I'm sure she speaks for a lot of people that run tournaments. Tournaments not only is the golf, but there's also a little bit of socializing and pro-ams, and if these people can't communicate, if some people, your golfer can't communicate, that wrecks the whole thing. I mean, let's face it, folks, this isn't heroic stuff. This is a business, and we have to treat it that way. Lenny, I'm out of time. But as always, you've been a great guest, and I appreciate it. And we'll have you back soon. I've got, 4 or 5 more shows, 4 more shows after this one. and we'll come back in, just a couple weeks, and we'll get your opinion and find out exactly what your excitement level for the FedEx Cup is.
Sounds good to me. Catch you down the road.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Hey,
that's Len Ziem of the Chicago Sun-Times, Chicagoland Golf. You could read a lot of his stuff at ChicagolandGolf.com. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin. You're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago, The Score, Sports Radio 670. And we're back. Don't forget, coming up after the top of the hour, Brian Hewitt, an insider from the Golf Channel. Boy, I tell you, Dave, this LPGA English-only edict, this fascinates me. Can you think of anything else in sports that even measures up to this or comes close?
Off the top of my head, no. The only thing that comes to mind is even the Japanese baseball players that you've seen come into the country within the last 10 years or so. A lot of these guys, they still don't know English. And you would think, we've talked, baseball players, they're more national heroes and everything. They're in touch with fans, in touch with media, the way that media has exploded in all sports and everything. I would have thought that they would have at least, Major League Baseball might have gone down to, say an Ichiro Suzuki or Hideki Matsui and said, hey, just for the sake of PR in this country and everything, could you guys try and learn a little English? And, they have, and they're a little bit better just because they've been here so long, but there's been nothing like what we're hearing right now with this LPGA story.
Yeah, unfortunately, the LPGA has one of the weakest media and communications departments of all the tours. PGA Tour, they do it professionally. They're constantly providing you with stuff. The LPGA Tour, it's a little bit different. And at least by doing this, I think they're meeting the needs of sponsors. You look at, Fukudomi on the Cubs, okay?
Right.
Kosuke Fukudomi comes over here. He has an interpreter in the dugout with him, I'm quite sure, that I have seen. But his only interaction with, there's no sponsors, so the only interaction that he would have with people is to sign autographs. And I'm not...
It's not that big a deal.
Then you look at baseball, at football, and when those guys interact with people, most of the time, from a lot of the football players I've met, a grunt will do. Do you know how to interpret grunts? That was a good grunt. That was a bad grunt.
Well, yeah, and I think I can count on one finger the number of foreign-speaking football players we've had in the NFL in history.
Yeah, sure.
But hockey's another story as well, too. Hockey, you've had a lot of European players come over. And
But you know what the funny part is? When I covered hockey, the locker room was full of interpreters.
Mm-hmm.
See, so it wasn't a problem, and then the guys on the hockey team that spoke both languages were able to ease those players in and teach them, all the things they needed to know, how to order a beer, how to get a cab home. But no, seriously, and so, but in golf, there are so many opportunities where a player has to go to a pro-am and interact with their group, and when there's a total language barrier, something's missing, and it's not as an attractive package for someone that's going to pay, anywhere from $800 to $2,500 to play in a pro-am
with somebody they can't understand and can't interact with during the day.
Exactly. And then you go to, the big sponsor parties where, I'm one of the sponsors of this tournament. You want to get out there and meet the players and everything, and the players are there, but there's no interaction. And from a selfish standpoint, it's very difficult for us in the media to talk to these players, obviously, and we would like to paint a picture. I'm sure of them. Right. I'm sure many of them have interesting personal stories to tell, background information, and right now we get Zippo.
Well, it makes it difficult for you to do your job. And that
correct.
And that is to get copy and get space and get quotes from these people.
Right, and so there's going to be those that are going to scream and yell and say this is their civil rights are being violated, and but see, this isn't racist. It's business. It's all about the ability to do business. And there's no entitlement for anybody to play on the LPGA Tour or any of the golf tours, as a matter of fact.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's you're there on merit, and I think the expectation that you can communicate with people, even on a very low level, I think that should be part of it. Anyway, all right, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin. You're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago, where you'll hear us on with Brian Hewitt in just a few minutes on The Score, Sports Radio 670.
This segment on The Score in Chicagoland Golf is brought to you by your Chicagoland Saturn dealers and by the Illinois Center for Broadcasting.
And we're back. Second half hour of the Chicagoland Golf Show. Second hour. Sorry about that.
Show.
A born loser, huh?
They wouldn't let me, I was stuck up there in the north suburbs at New Trier. They wouldn't let me go to Riverside Brookfield and play freshman basketball with Phil Kosin. So anyhow, here I am living in Orlando, working for Golf Channel. It's a strange world we live in.
Well, I have a feeling that at your height, had you walked into Riverside Brookfield, they would have jumped all over you to put you on that basketball team, because I think we had a center. Of course, I used to write about basketball in those days. I think we had a center that was like 6'3" if he stood on a telephone book. And I think his jump shot, you could slip 2 sheets of 20-pound bond under his legs while they were up in the air.
Well, I just remember that those guys from Riverside Brookfield, they didn't have many vowels in their last names, but they beat on us. They were good enough to beat us rich kids from New Trier. So there you have it. We weren't very good.
Well, are you following the story from where you're based now in Orlando about the Senator James Meeks bringing all the kids from the inner city to try to enroll them at New Trier this upcoming week?
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say, am I following the story about the LPGA requiring English evaluations for all the non-American players? But nope. What's going on up there in Winnetka?
Well, there's a group of people that, once again, it's like, in my opinion, it's the theory that in government you can fix anything if you throw money at it.
Yeah.
And because of the high property taxes in the New Trier area, they pay those high property taxes, and they have the best schools in the state up in that area. On the south side of Chicago, the real estate taxes aren't that good, and so in the Chicago public school system, they're spending $10,600 a kid during the school year, whereas at New Trier it's more like $17,000. And in order to make a point that the current system of funding schools through local real estate taxes there's inequities there, that it's a civil rights violation. The entertainment never stops here, let me tell you.
Well,
there is
interesting. And I know this is supposed to be a golf show, and this is indirectly, I can relate this to golf, but I will say that my understanding is California and Arizona, they distribute the tax dollars evenly to all schools throughout the state, and some people like that, and some people don't. But what you just said about the $17,000 per kid versus the $10,000 per kid is one reason why New Trier always has good golf teams. Because golf is an expensive sport, and they just, if for no other reason, I'm not saying there aren't talented kids and good, hard-working kids in New Trier, but they certainly have an edge in terms of being able to have the equipment and the facilities and that sort of thing to play golf.
Sure, and it works. There's a lot of, if you want to use the word inequity, go ahead. There's a lot of inequities like that. But I'd also think that for at least $10,000, $11,000 a student, that the kids would at least learn how to read and at least get some of the basics down. And I don't want to get into it because it also involves the parents. The parents need to, because there's about a 50% dropout rate in the Chicago public school system, has nothing to do with the amount of money that the school system receives to educate each kid. So,
and the other thing that people will tell you, Phil, and this is the last I'll say on this because I think you're itching to move on, but the other issue here is that the teachers are paid more at New Trier than they are in lower income areas, and as a result, the best teachers are looking to get jobs at New Trier, and therefore, sort of by trickle down, you're going to have an opportunity to get a better education, at least be taught by better teachers if you go to New Trier. So I love the fact that I was lucky enough to go to New Trier and I got a great high school education, but I'm all for equity over inequity in terms of opportunities for all kids.
Sure. Well, but it also raises, and this will be the last thing I say, and then we'll move on back on to golf.
Right.
But, New Trier has all this money, and with their facilities and the way the infrastructure is, they need that $17,000 per kid. And if it all goes into a general pie and everybody gets a fair share, then no longer will the New Trier schools be able to uphold the type of education that they've been able to provide which is the wishes of the residents. So it's going to be real interesting to see how the whole thing shakes out because, not only are you talking money for schools, but you're talking about home values and everything that's tied into it. So, it's not going to be an easy solution. Okay. You brought it up. It came up earlier this week. The LPGA Tour has decided that next year all of its players will need to speak English, and there is also a threat of a suspension if they cannot. Give me your take on the whole thing.
Well, it's a nice concept in that the LPGA is struggling right now. They've got 3 tournaments that don't have sponsors in 2009 that did in 2008. As you know, the money is tight all over right now. Sponsorships don't come easy. So what does the LPGA want to do about this? They want to make themselves more sponsor and fan-friendly, and one way they believe they can do it, and so far I'm good with this whole line of reasoning on their part, is to try and make their players a little more fan-friendly and sponsor-friendly, i.e., if a player wins a tournament, they ought to be able to hold the trophy in the check and speak and give a 90-second soundbite that makes everybody feel good. If the winner of that tournament is a Korean or a Japanese or a Taiwanese or a Italian woman who can't speak English very well, if at all, then you're not going to get that 90-second soundbite, and you're not going to get friendliness in the pro-ams with the 4 guys that are our age that are chomping on a cigar and playing with some woman who can't speak English, and I understand all of that. I understand that need on the part of the LPGA. Now, to get to cut to the chase, throwing the idea of suspensions out there in a ham-fisted way, which I believe is what the LPGA did, was poor execution on their part, and in fact, I think Phil opens them up to all kinds of legal action by players, foreign-born players, by the ACLU, civil liberties people, so forth and so on. And I think this is, if you look up can of worms in the golf dictionary, you will see a picture of what's going on at the LPGA right now with regards to the English language.
Yeah, it's no secret, and we talked about this on the show last week with Gary Van Sickle of Sports Illustrated. I have been writing it on my blog. It's no secret. The LPGA is in trouble. I think I'll correct you, I think it's 4 tournaments that are down for next year.
Okay.
And others have said that they want to talk about reductions in purses and other things when it comes time for renewal. I thought it was really interesting in the Associated Press story that they got a comment from one tournament director, Kate Peters of the LPGA State Farm Classic, which is here at downstate Springfield, Illinois. And she said, it's the old rail. Right. Her words are, quote, "This is an American tour. It is important for sponsors to be able to interact with players and have a positive experience." Now, one of the reasons that we've had problems in the media opening up these girls is because of the language barrier. When the LPGA Tour was here in Chicago, there weren't as many Asian girls as there are now, not as high a percentage, but you couldn't really talk to any of the players after their round and ask questions because there were no interpreters provided.
Right.
And you know what? And here's the other thing too. I remember, you talk about being dinosaurs. You remember Jumbo Ozaki. What used to kill me is we'd wait for him to come off the 18th green at whatever major he was invited to, the ceremonial, 50 photographers following him, the whole thing. And he would come over there with an interpreter, and he would say a few things in the flash area behind the 18th green, where, for those of you at home, that's the area where they will bring more players that they usually don't bring to the press room. They will have a flash area, a little interview area off to the side where there won't be any commotion interrupting play, and anybody could shoot a couple questions out, and then the player goes on his way. When they would bring Jumbo over, first he would come to the English-speaking writers, and there would be an interpreter, and he would say things, short answers, and we got short answers. Then he would go over to I don't know if you ever observed this, and then he'd go over to the Japanese media, and they'd be over there, and they'd be laughing, and he'd be laughing, and you'd think, what is so funny? How come we're not getting this stuff?
Well, so you may remember, Phil, I'm sure you were there. You're reminding me of the 1989 PGA at Kemper Lakes when Isao Aoki of Japan shot a very low round. It was either Friday or Saturday. I know that tournament was truncated with lightning and so forth and so on. So I'm not sure of the exact chronology. But he came into the press room with an interpreter, and I'll never forget. This was taking your story. It was sort of one step farther. He had an interpreter there, and it was the English-speaking media, and somebody asked him a question. The interpreter repeated the question in Japanese to Aoki. Aoki gave a long answer, probably, almost 2 minutes long, with gesturing with his hands and all kinds of animation and laughter. And when he was finished, the interpreter turned back to us and said, "He says yes." and everybody, including Aoki, everybody burst out laughing like it was a big joke, and it was a funny moment. But you know what? It didn't fill our notebooks. So we were looking for a quote, and yes wasn't doing it as a quote.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, hang on. I'm up against a hard break here. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. Great Saturday in Chicago. A lot going on in town. We got the Bears going. We got the White Sox and the Cubs going. But we're talking golf this morning, and we'll come back with more. I'm Phil Kosin, and you're listening to the Chicagoland Golf Show. And this is CBS Radio in Chicago, the Score, the Spore, and the Score, Sports Radio 670. All right, we're back. Another segment with our friend Brian Hewitt. Brian, we're talking about the LPGA Tour demanding that its players learn to speak English to be able to communicate not only with media but with tournament sponsors. Now, I understand that politically correctness really doesn't like this whole thing, On the other hand, though, I believe it's still legal for an employer to demand that its employees speak English while on the job. I think that since professional golfers are not really employees, they're independent contractors, I think they even have less legal standing. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that the LPGA has less legal standing, Phil, because you brought up the independent contractor thing, and that's exactly what Tim Fincham, he says this over and over and over again. He says, I work for the players, is what he says. Now, for a guy who works for the players, he makes an awful lot of decisions and convinces them quite often that his arguments are the most compelling. But technically, that's the way that is. It's an association of which he's basically the executive director. His title is commissioner, and he works for the players. And I believe that the LPGA is similar that way. And if that's the case, see, here's this whole thing breaks down in a bunch of ways, Phil, because when they called the meeting last week to let the players know that the LPGA called a meeting last week to let the players know that they had made this decision. First of all, they never let any of the players know that this was coming in terms of possible suspensions. And second of all, which I think is a huge blunder, is they only invited the Korean women. Now, there are 45 Korean women who have their cards on the LPGA, but there are, there are, I believe it's 121 international players on that tour on a regular or semi-regular basis. They didn't invite the rest of them. They didn't invite the regular membership. They didn't invite the English-speaking women, so that when this woman, Beth Ann Baldry, who broke this story for Golf Week magazine, found out about it and then started talking to some of the players like Lorena Ochoa and some of the Americans, they weren't even aware that this had happened. And the Koreans were extremely insulted by the fact that they were the only ones called in to be told about the possible suspensions, as if to say, well, you're the only ones who haven't learned English. Well, I got news for you. There are some Taiwanese women out there, and there are some Japanese women out there who don't speak English very well either. So, again, we're talking about the execution. It's a great concept that these women should all speak terrific English, but when the execution here has really been sorely lacking on the part of the LPGA.
In principle, it's a good idea.
Yes.
In practice, geez, what a surprise. They screwed the whole thing up. And, why should that surprise any of us? I think they're in a desperation mode right now, as I've been writing and saying on this show. Here she is. Carolyn Bivens, the LPGA Tour Commissioner, is out trying to sell this season-ending thing like the FedEx Cup, trying to milk a few extra bucks, $125,000, whatever it is, from each of 8 sponsors to get into this thing. And where they should be focused is replacing 4 tournament sponsors that are not going to sponsor tournaments next year, and trying to find something that will make up that $24 million. And what that starts is a downward spiral. And so, if you want to say go ahead and speak, Korean or don't speak English, at what cost? And I think that's where they're caught right now. I don't really think they have much of a choice.
Well, they don't, but that doesn't excuse, blundering into this thing. The other point, I mean, you're absolutely right. But, you asked the LPGA, and we did at Golf Channel, how closely did you look into this, the ramifications, and we were told that by the LPGA that their lawyers had thoroughly vetted the whole situation. Well, it turns out that when we asked what was the English equivalency test or the English evaluation test, how was that exactly going to work? And turns out they don't know. They haven't figured out a test.
Of course they don't. Here's what's going to be. You're going to have to walk into a restaurant and order off the menu in English. And if they bring you something that looks like food, you pass. If they bring you a flaming earmuff on a bun, you don't pass. I mean, really.
So cheeseburger. If you keep your card if you can say cheeseburger.
Yeah. You know what this is, and here's what I smell. I mean, we're talking about Carolyn Bivens, who's done everything possible to screw up the LPGA Tour in the last couple of years. She's the one that 2 years ago demanded an extra $125,000. And we're back. Final segment on the Chicagoland Golf Show with an interviewee. And that person is Jim Felchner, who is the tournament director of, I can't believe they pay people to do this stuff and work in these places. The Kapalua LPGA Classic out in Hawaii. Could you imagine having that kind of a job? Jim, welcome to the show. Welcome to Chicago Radio. And how much do you pay for that job? How much does it cost you to have that job?
Well, it's a labor of love.
Let me just tell our listeners up front that Mike Jones, who has been on this show before, a friend of the program, a friend of Chicagoland Golf, a friend of the Score, he moved out there. I can't imagine how you guys could talk him into leaving Cantini in the Chicago area and his snowblower to go to Hawaii to be, what is he, the general manager down there now?
He's actually the director of golf out here of the entire resort, oversees both the Bay and the Plantation courses, and staffing for our academy as well. So he's got a big role out here, and he's fit in perfectly. The family just transitioned out, the kids and his wife, and so they're getting integrated into the community. But Mike's a huge asset for our resort, and he just does a phenomenal job. And he's real excited about not only the resort and our assets here with our properties and our golf courses, but he's really excited about our golf tournaments. As you know, we do run the Mercedes-Benz Championship in January. That's the Tournament of Champions for the PGA Tour. And now we're bringing on our new event, the Kapalua LPGA Classic, this October, where we'll be showcasing not only Morgan Pressel, our LPGA touring professional, but, the best lady golfers in the world will be coming out to the Bay course and showcasing their talents here on Maui. So we're real excited about that.
Yeah, when I had Len Ziem of Chicagoland Golf and the Chicago Sun-Times on and Brian Hewitt of the Golf Channel just before you, we, of course, talked about what a lot of people think may be one of the 2 hottest stories or 3 hottest stories of the whole year in golf, and that is that the LPGA has said it's going to make mandatory that players speak English. It wasn't handled real well because they only brought Korean players in. I mean, it's like they went off half-cocked on this whole thing. But anyway, I personally think it's a good idea because, I mean, let's face it, you guys are... Obviously, it's for charity, but, they've got to provide a product for you to market and to sell to sponsors and to ticket buyers and corporate hospitality people. And it's become a problem when there's a language barrier, when a lot of the players and more Asians keep coming in, a lot of the players can't speak English. Now, where do you guys stand on that whole thing? As a tournament host, does this sound like a good idea from your standpoint?
Well, I've been running tournaments for many years. I just came on board here at Kapalua this past October to actually specifically run the LPGA event here at the resort. But I've been involved with LPGA golf events here in the Hawaii. I've ran events out at Waikoloa and over at Turtle Bay, and so I've had many years to get to know the tour. Their vision. I've gotten to know many of the players. And, on defense of the tour, because I know that they're kind of getting blasted here a little bit with this press release. But, they have been working on this communication skill with the players for many years. This isn't something that hasn't been addressed in the past. That has been addressed in the past. It's not something that just came out of left field and all of a sudden the players are shocked by this. I mean, they have been working with the players, the tour has, and effectively, recommending and helping and assisting with them on their English-speaking skills for many years now. Now they're just kind of taking it to another level and saying, hey, we really want to, up the ante on this, and here's some requirements that go along with it. Can it be viewed as harsh from some? Sure. Many will not agree, and some may agree. I'm a supporter of what I think the tour is trying to accomplish here on the big picture. I think that, when you look at corporate America, you look at the major sponsors that are helping to fund this tour and to put on a good show for their VIPs and their clients and for their company and trying to get the exposure from a marketing standpoint. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't think the tour is telling the players that they have to speak only English, that's being misconstrued right now. I think they're just saying to the players, hey, it's a really good idea that you brush up on this part of your communication skills, and that's to know a little bit of English. I think that's good in our corporate world, especially when these players are a major part of the tour and they're a major part of why these companies sponsor these events, and it's good to be able to communicate with the sponsors. I think it's a good thing from a the big picture side of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Did the LPGA, you go to a lot of the sponsors' meetings and attend all those things. Did the LPGA come up with this on their own, or is this something as a response to some requests, suggestions from sponsors?
I think it's been, yes, I do go to the annual TOA meetings, and it's been 9 months, and my focus has been here in Kapalua, but so I can't really tell you offhand if this was a major topic last December in Phoenix, but it's something that is ongoing. These are just discussions that a lot of the tournament owners have, and it is something that would be greatly appreciated by sponsors. I think that's some of the big challenges that you have when you've got corporate American sponsors, in the sports world, and it's a positive thing if the players can interact with these sponsors, whether it's in a pro-am setting, whether it's in a meet and greet setting or a sponsor function. I think it's just better showcases the players and there are multiple talents, not just on the golf course. But I just think I think they're trying to go after a bigger picture here, and I think they're trying to satisfy if there are issues with sponsors out there, and we don't have an issue at Kapalua. We're happy to have them all come no matter what they speak. So, but I'm saying I am aware that there are some out there that would prefer that there was some ability to interact, and why not? They're flipping a lot of money around here to make these things happen, and so I think it's a positive thing for the company and for the tour as a whole. I mean, this is a touchy subject. I'm trying to dance around this a little bit.
Sure, I understand.
Because I support what the LPGA Tour is doing, and I also understand the corporate side of it. Because it is important that there are the ability to communicate, because golf is different than watching Major League Baseball. You're in the stands. You're not one-on-one with the players in the dugout. You're not being able to interact with these players outside of the stadium. You just don't. LPGA or pro golf is just completely different, so there really can't be a comparison, because I've been reading the different press releases that have been coming out on this, and everybody's trying to, say, well, God, MLB doesn't do this, and these different sports don't do it. Well, it's not. They're not the same. Professional golf is very, very interactive with the players from a corporate standpoint. When
sure.
You integrate all what's happening with pro-ams and parties and functions, that's huge. It's a key component. I mean, these sponsors are interacting with these players, so it's good that they can communicate with them.
Sure, and Major League Baseball is one big organization, or any of the big sports. They're all huge organizations, and that's pure entertainment. It's almost like going to a theater where you can't interact with what's going on the screen. But with golf, the spectators and the sponsors are right in it with the players.
That's right. It's just a different animal, and I think that the sports world, should respect what the tour's decision is, whether they agree with it or not. I think that, the LPGA has been very clear on, why they're doing this, and they're not telling these players that they can't speak their home, language, that they're just saying, hey, as a part of who you are and the countries that you represent, it would be just nice if there was a level of English speaking, so there can be some interaction, and I think it's a good benchmark. I really do. I personally think it's, I'm not speaking on behalf of any organization or even our resort out here. I'm saying me personally, I think it's a good thing.
Sure. Yeah, for the last several years, and yes, I am critical of all the tours, but only in the interest of their health and their ongoing stuff. I mean, I knew what was going to happen with the TV numbers and tickets and everything when Tiger Woods decided not to play for the rest of the year. I think only a moron would miss that one. But it's also no secret that the LPGA Tour has been struggling lately, and it looks like right now Carolyn Bivens, the commissioner, is going to be short 4 events for next year. And maybe maybe that's what sparked this whole thing, Maybe not a sponsor like you because you're in a cosmopolitan area, but let's face it, there's not a lot of foreign language being spoken to the same degree in places like Sylvania, Ohio, where you have the Jamie Farr, and downstate Springfield, Illinois, with the Rail Classic. That's where I think more of the pressure would come from, not from a place like Kapalua or from a major where they may be more used to stuff like that.
Right. Well, I can't speculate on why I think that the timing of this would appear that way, but the reality is that we're in a very economically trying time right now. The economy is not good. There's some cracks in the foundation there here in the U.S. and even abroad, even in global markets. So I think that with potentially other events in 2009, coming up for renewal or not being renewed, I said I'm not at liberty to speak about those because those aren't my issues. But I just know that I would not speculate that that's a coincidence. That's in line with this policy. I think this policy's been in the making for a while. I think that the tour's goal all along was to try to raise the level of all their members so that there'd be proper communications. They wanted to have a core competency so we can meet the levels of all the different sponsors and in the area of communication. I think it's been a real positive thing. So. Is it a coincidence that there's possibly some events going away? I don't know of those to be factual or not. I think that this is an issue on all three tours. I think there's some sponsorship attrition that's going to happen across the Champions Tour and the PGA Tour. I think it's just a sign of our economic times, and I can't imagine this being in tandem with this policy by any means. But
sure, Jim, I'm out of time. I wish we could go on forever, but I'll tell you what, thank you for your time, and God, good luck with the resort, good luck with the Kapalua LPGA Classic, and when our listeners and readers come there, I'll have them walk up to the front desk and say, hi, I got a Chicago-style pizza for Mike Jones. Mike sent me.
I like it. I'll tell Mike you said hi, and we appreciate your time, and keep us in touch.
We will do that. Thank you very much.
You bet. Aloha.
Okay. Aloha. I love that. Ooh, makes me feel good on a Saturday morning. That's Jim Felchner, the tournament director of the Kapalua LPGA Classic. And we'll take a break. This is the Chicagoland Golf Show. I'm Phil Kosin. You're listening to CBS Radio in Chicago. The Score, Sports Radio 670. Oh, boy. Where did that 2 hours go? The 2 hours of this show goes by just about as fast as summer in golf season. So, as we said before, I think it would be a good idea if there are courses on your list to play this year and you haven't gotten to them yet, now would be a good time. Especially, the best time to go play golf when the courses are the least crowded is the Tuesday after Labor Day. Did you know that, Dave?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, if you ever want to book an...
Why is that, by the way? I was about to say.
Because nobody takes the day off after Labor Day because it's on a Monday. If they're going to take it off, they're going to go Friday and Thursday before,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. But a lot of people have told me that if you want to get a good bargain on a golf outing, the Tuesday after Labor Day is the day to do it. Anyway, Dave White, thank you for all your assistance this morning.
You're welcome, sir.
Great show. I want to thank my guests, Len Ziem of the Chicago Sun-Times, Brian Hewitt, Golf Insider from the Golf Channel, who originally was a writer with Chicago Sun-Times, the Daily News at one time, and even for a time, Chicagoland Golf. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Aloha, Jim Felchner, the tournament director of the LPGA Kapalua Classic. Great to talk to somebody in Hawaii the next time we do it. Why don't we do it across a table? That would be fun.
I'm all up for a remote, by the way.
Yeah, a remote. Well, we'll talk to the powers that be here at the Score and see if we can do a remote from Hawaii.
And when they finish laughing at us, then we'll be back here in our regular.
I'm sure we'd have plenty of volunteers that would be willing to go to help us untangle microphone cords and everything. All right, that's it, folks. We'll have another great show for you next week. I'm going to watch that FedEx Cup this weekend, the Deutsche Bank. God, you could cut it with a knife, huh? How about Zach Johnson? If I read things correctly, he won the Masters this year and then didn't, and he's out of the FedEx Cup running as we speak. Until next time, I'll say I'm Phil Kosin. Keep it in the short stuff, everyone. This has been a Pull My Finger production.
Thanks for tuning in to Chicagoland Golf with Phil Kosin on every Saturday from 6 to 8 a.m. on WSCR 670. The Score.